My best friend from seminary is a retired FBI agent. We have shared a lot of conversations concerning our past. I worked in a jail for my social work practicum, and he spent several decades with the Bureau, so he usually had more stories to share. We often got into conversations about the criminal mind. Now, I'm not talking about someone who occasionally commits a crime, but those who seem addicted to it. He would tell me about how he walked into a situation where someone was brutally murdered or tortured, and how he could not comprehend what went through the criminal's mind to do such horrible and awful things. I myself have wondered, as I've sat across from murderers and sex offenders, what goes through their head that makes them think and act the way they do. Those who commit serial crimes often believe that the world functions in the same way they do. They believe that the truth of the world is that everyone goes out and rapes, murders, and steals from everyone else. This is their reality, because it is oftentimes the only reality they know. In their past life, many people who commit serial crimes have themselves been victims of rape, murder in some form, or larceny. It is a reality that my friend and I cannot comprehend, because we ourselves do not see the world through those lenses. It is a reality completely foreign to us. However, what these criminals do reveal is that this world really is not always a pretty place. They have seen things that I cannot even imagine another human being doing to another. They act out in a way to reveal this reality. It is just unfortunate that they choose a way that brings about destruction. The Canaanite woman was also revealing a reality in this story. She was revealing the rape, murder, and larceny that had happened to her people, albeit she reveals it in a non-destructive way. This Canaanite woman came from a group of people that were considered incestuous, illegitimate children who worship false gods and have a huge history of sexual depravity. Not to mention that this character is also a woman, where societal rules make it very taboo for a woman to approach a man in a public place. Jesus even tried to put her in her place by calling her a dog, a very terrible insult even to this day. However, this woman was smart and driven. But what was it that drove her? Why did she actually make the step to approach Jesus and ask for his help in freeing her daughter from a demon? Who is Jesus in relationship to her? She sees herself as a human being who suffers at the hands of others' stereotypes. She is the ultimate example of the person that Jewish people did not spend time with. People accused her of being someone who corrupts, who brings down people to her level of depravity, making them unable to ever meet God. Jesus was, on the other hand, a respected rabbi, a teacher with a group of followers who listened and followed his whim. Rabbis did not associate with the riffraff of the world. What did she see in Jesus that would ever make him do what she asked? Jesus comments that she has strong faith. So this woman trusted Jesus. What is it that she trusted about him? Jesus had come to be the light of the world. He had come to be the Messiah who would, in fact, bring about change to this world. As he said, he was there for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He had come to do what the people of Israel had called him to do, and that is to shine the light of God to all nations. The people of Israel were not chosen out of God's favoritism, but were chosen because God had a job for them. As we several weeks ago heard in the second lesson, the Messiah came out from the people of Israel. In reality, Jesus had come to do the job. Excuse me. Jesus had come to do the job that the Israelite people had failed to do, and that is to share the light of God to all people. To show God's mercy to all the nations and God's devotion to all peoples. To be the chosen people did not mean that they were special in a sense that they had entitlement, but that they had a great responsibility. This very woman was calling on Jesus to be who he was, the light of God that was to bring salvation onto the world. This woman, much like a psalmist almost, was reminding Jesus of who Jesus is and what Jesus does, and that is to save the world. As the chosen people of God, we are called to do as Jesus does and teaches. We are taught to encounter other people in all places and all times. However, we fail miserably at this. This past week, I was in a town meeting with concerned citizens over the abuse of alcohol amongst our junior high and high school youth. One citizen talked about how parents discourage their youth from hanging out with the bad kids and don't allow these bad kids to come into their homes. They don't want their kids to be corrupted by the influences of these bad kids. While these bad kids are just like the Canaanite woman. Kids who have poor homes, poor home lives with little to no structure, who crave adult role models in their life. Instead of opening up their homes, parents have been turning away these kids back onto the street, throwing away an opportunity to reach out to kids in need, to teach to their own kids tolerance for all people. This is not the only example. We as a people do not like strangers. Racism, sexism, sociocentrism, and many other isms exist because we do not trust our neighbor. We act out in hatred, denying that God has encountered them in a dramatically different way than us. God is not limited to our single perspective, but God reaches out to all people. The crumbs that fall from the table are to go out to the whole world, and these crumbs are what will bring salvation to all the world. This woman in the story believed and trusted that Jesus Christ was the bread of life, the one who would bring wholeness and forgiveness of sins to all the world. She knew the source of all life, and after being snubbed by Jesus, she still stood by and begged for those scraps. What should you do? You constantly turn away others from your doorstep. You constantly bring destruction to all people because of your sinful and hateful heart. However, the reality of the cross reveals that your sin is not the end of the world. You have nailed Jesus on the cross, but Christ cried out, "God, have mercy on them." You made Christ scream out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And then watch Christ die on the cross. This is all your fault because of the sin of all people. But God knew that you could not live through this life alone. God's advocation, in the very words, "God, have mercy on them," was your salvation. Christ knew that you could not meet your neighbor alone. And so Christ meets you in the neighbor. The face that stares back at you after your words of hatred spew out is the face of the crucified Christ. But remember, Christ arose. Your hateful and destructive actions were no match for the power of God. Christ now meets you with the face of the resurrection as Christ opens up your heart to receive that person. You will still reject people at times. constantly banging more nails into Christ's feet and hands. But the resurrected Lord meets you and transforms your heart so that the hateful words will leave your lips and you will feel the forgiving hands of God as God works between you and the other person to build a new relationship. You will constantly reject the humanity of your fellow human beings, but Christ will constantly renew you in God's grace. The effect of sin is very deep, and it took the very death of God in Christ Jesus for you to ever have the opportunity to have an open heart for the neighbor. It is interesting to see what happens when you encounter someone different from you. Oftentimes, you are transformed by God in ways that you do not understand, and you come to grasp a new reality. I myself will never understand why people who commit crimes do what they do, nor will I ever condone it. Not only will I never condone it, but I cannot help but feel a sense of hatred towards them. That is why I am in need of Christ to meet me in them. When it comes to their salvation, that is out of my hands, but I am to encounter them in all of their messiness. This is an impossible task, but not for God. Christ meets you in all people and reveals the very humanity in all people and shows that, including you, are in need of those scriptures. The hymn is number 479.